Hi, and we're finally here, in the last episode of 10 years of Windows gaming 2002, and also the last one for the entire series covering the first decade of Windows gaming. Well, there's definitely going to be another for 2003 to 1220 eventually, for now, this is it. So, let's watch it together and you can expect compilation videos to drop in around a month or so. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets is the second Harry Potter game on PC, and it follows the events depicted in the movie. For those 7 of you unfamiliar with who Harry Potter is, let me quickly bring you up to speed. Harry was an orphan, living with his uncle, aunt and cousin, and they're all dicks. I mean, Harry isn't, but the family, man, they suck. Big time. Anyway, despite being told that his parents died in a car accident, when he turned 13, he received an invitation to join Hogwarts, a school of magic, where he learned that in reality, his parents were killed by another evil wizard going by the name of... Ah, you nearly got me there, you sneaky you. We do not speak his name here. What's more, the wizard, let's call him Smelly Breath, apparently tried to kill Harry too, but failed, leaving him with a scarred forehead and seemingly dying in the process. So RIP Smelly Breath. Since we now know the background to it all, what is the game actually about? In Chamber of Secrets, which sounds like a title for an adult-themed movie, Harry is in his second year in Hogwarts. Someone is secretly attacking and petrifying mudbloods, so wizards with human ancestors, and Harry and the gang need to solve the murderous puzzle. It seems that the answer to it all may lie in the Chamber of Secrets, a secret room where Hermione meets with her wooers and lovers. Wooer, what a word, it instantly makes me feel 40 years older. I don't think I've used it more than once before, so that would make it a second here today. Wow, honestly, I'm not sure if I'll ever get to use it again. Oh, and naturally, the room has nothing to do with Hermione, I have no idea why I went with it in that direction. Anyway, Chamber of Secrets is an action-adventure game with most of its focus placed on that action side of it. So you run around 3-dimensional levels, solve mostly environmental puzzles, many of which are jump puzzles. And I know that some of you hate those with a passion of a toothless beaver. You also learn and cast new spells, and all of that to progress through a rather linear, even if open-world story that follows the movie closely. Other than chasing the plot, adventuring and occasional combat, you can also collect wizard cards here in 3 varieties: bronze, silver and gold. And they are both useful to have and fun to hunt down. Well, if you're a collector at heart, cause if you're not, they're no more than the necessary evil that you have to go out of your way to find. There are quite a few minigames in Chamber of Secrets, and while their existence is not necessary, they run the game up as a complete package nicely. Chamber of Secrets may have been targeting a younger audience at launch, but I'd risk saying that it's good enough for everyone to give it a chance. If you ever played Caesar 3 or Pharaoh, you'll feel in Emperor Rise of the Middle Kingdom right at home. It too is a city-building micromanagement heaven, only set in China and covering 3000 years of its history. So, same as in its predecessors, you're responsible for everything to keep the city running and prospering. So you'll be making sure to feed your population to keep them happy, healthy and safe from internal and external hazards. Now, if that was all, Emperor would be a very simple and uninteresting game. So naturally, there's much more. You also have to keep an eye on trade and taxation, earning and saving money to fund your further expansion and development. Other than the standard city building fare, there are a few additional interesting mechanics in the Emperor. For instance, heroes, who you should make offerings to prevent them from becoming angry and sending disasters your way. And also to keep them happy, cause when they're happy you're happy, and when you're happy, good things happen to the city. I mean, who wouldn't want their city to have a hero visit it, stroll around the streets waving at people, posing for selfies with fans, group paintings, it was not the time for selfies yet, and giving inspirational TED Talks. Speeches. Yeah, speeches. Everyone wants that in their city. Other than the Emperor, like literally the Emperor of China that you have to keep happy, there are also neighboring cities, and it's beneficial in the long run to have them like you too. Who wouldn't like you? You're like the most lovable person ever. I liked you the very moment you clicked play, and if you tap on that sub, share and bell icons too, I'll be like 2 days away from proclaiming my eternal love to you. Anyway, it goes without saying that you have to keep an army, and also, if resources allow, build defensive walls. Your city is the best city, and those who don't have it as good will want to grab a piece of your pie, and Joey does not share food. Tech, religion and various inventions will change throughout the ages and will more or less follow the real history of China, which is a very nice and welcome touch. So are the campaigns, which span literal thousands of years, so you may be sent to manage and expand on different cities by different ruling emperors, and then, after a while, be sent to those you've previously governed, which is an interesting concept as it allows you to witness how they evolved over time or how they've fallen into ruin, because both are as feasible. There are 7 of these campaigns in the game, and while they can be completed in any order, I'd suggest to go through them chronologically, as that's how their difficulty ramps up too. Warrior Kings is a bit of a sleeper hit and a title that deserved much more recognition and popularity than it received. It's not a game without faults, mind you, just one that got the short end of the stick, failing to garner wide enough spread to pick up and become something much bigger. It's a fantasy-themed real-time tactical strategy set in a world torn between religion and technology, so imperial and pagan factions respectively, or paths, I should say really. Well, there's also a Renaissance one too, that grants access to siege engines and gunpowder to name a few, but it also prevents you from having access to the strongest units of the main too. Each of the factions is naturally unique and grants you different units and powers, and their implementation in the campaign is something I've not seen in any other game. It's done in a very novel and one-of-a-kind way, and based on a branching approach to the mission structure, meaning that there are certain points in the campaign which call for a choice from your end. But instead of letting you pick which faction ideology you'd like to side with, you are usually giving a yes-no question, and your pick at those points will decide who you'll follow for a while after. While that idea is rather fun and adds a lot to the replayability, these key moments come without any warning, and you're not always 100% sure which way the game will swing after you provide your answer. And trust me when I tell you that playing with religious fanatics is something entirely different than doing so with a technology-focused group. Either way, the campaign is split into missions, and each of them can have multiple objectives and challenges that can also vary considerably from one another, ranging from box standard building up of your settlement and units and having to defeat the enemy, to puzzling missions where you're giving a set of carefully picked units and a goal, and no support or change to add more soldiers to your side until you complete it. It forces you to plan out your strategy step by step and weight all your decisions rather than focus on traditional RTS trifecta of resource gathering, base and unit building, and warfare. I mean, there's plenty of these here too, just not all of them follow the trope. Combat encounters are well executed and take into account not only strengths and weaknesses of particular units, but also terrain. So archers are more effective from high ground, which is also a terrain much easier to defend, but cavalry too can gain higher speed and as a result of that, strength when galloping downhill rather than on flat ground. There are also formations present in Warrior Kings, combat survivors earn experience and in time get better and better as they win more and more battles. And both of these can and will influence outcome of any and all engagements. As with most RTS games, Warrior Kings has a story too, and it's a tale of Arthos, an heir to the throne, who after witnessing a betrayal resulting in his father's killing, flees his homeland to gather forces to plot his revenge. Overall, despite some small pathfinding and campaign choices issues, Warrior Kings is a decent addition to the genre and a game all fans of it should try out. Rollercoaster Tycoon 2 is a sequel to the original and another amazing game from legendary developer Chris Sawyer. You're still in charge of a theme park and still have to turn it from a playground with 2 swings and an old rubber tire into a money grab scheme that will empty the pockets of your customers, all the while filling their hearts with warm and fuzzy feeling of fun. In fact, it's a balancing act of a game where you need to keep your expenses in check and your income growing. So, to do all that and keep your park visitors happy, you have a whole slew of different attractions and services at hand. There are gentle, thrill and transport rides, obviously roller coasters too, water rides, shops, stalls, bathrooms, ATMs and information kiosks, among others. The main feature of the game is naturally the roller coaster designer, and in this second outing, you can really have a lot of fun with it. It's a rather robust and powerful tool and makes it all the more entertaining being able to create your own rides and then see them bring in money. Or, if you're me, spending way too much time designing RCs that then no one cares to ride. But I'm special that way, so you know, it may not be something that you'll ever have to worry about yourself. Any and all amusement parks naturally need stuff to keep running, maintained and clean, and RCT2 is no different, so you'll have to hire and manage workers. Overall, if you've never played the first, RCT2 is a fantastic little game and a lot of fun all the way through. But if you did graduate to it from the original, there are a few things that make it a tad disappointing release. Well, at least for me. For one, the engine and the graphics, aside from a few new and a couple of removed assets, are both the same, even despite the games releasing 3 years apart. I mean, it could be argued that the simple isometric presentation is timeless, but it's also stale if the sequel you were waiting for changed virtually nothing about it. Secondly, the rollercoaster designer, a few Six Flags coasters and a bit more demanding scenarios are the only things I can tell from the top of my head that were new additions to the sequel. They're all fine really, nothing to complain about, but they're just a bit too little to justify the 2 and not 1.5 numbering next to the game's title. And finally, and this may come as a surprise to you, the biggest fault to me about RCT2 is lack of a sandbox mode. because while scenarios are fine and all I want from my business simulation games is to take them to the extreme, to run the companies for so long until I will reverse the money counter or freeze the game, because designers never expected anyone to make as much money. That, the sandbox mode that is what I feel would have made it a full-fledged 2.0 release. I loved Mad Max movies as a kid. I mean, I probably still do, just not seen the originals in a while. I like both modern remakes too, even the Furiosa that world somehow collectively decided to hate. It sits at 7.5 at IMDb, which is not bad, but in the same time it barely managed to return the investment, and bringing no profit in Hollywood is a clear sign of a failure. Anyway, a mixture of red-hot scorching sun, an ocean of sand-covered deserts, cars made out of scraps, and barbaric post-up atmosphere of it all just do it for me in a weird and an unexplainable way. And Bandits Phoenix Rising is basically all that, short of a compelling plot and focusing on car combat only. So, the world has ended. What happened exactly? Nobody knows, but what is well known is what the world relegated to, and it's left in a constant struggle for fuel, water and ammo. You know, like in Mad Max. You and your gunner Rudolph are members of the Wolfpack gang and plow through the game, completing series of missions like Cookie Monster goes through a jar of double chip cookies. Not gonna lie, while the missions have their individual objectives, so races, duels, train robberies, convoy assaults and raids on enemy bases among others, they could all really be simplified to you versus the world, and it's you who's gotta come out on top, killing any and all enemies that get in your way. It's a very basic premise perhaps, but the combat is action-packed and never stops, so you never really have enough time to ponder about the reason of it all. You do get to listen to Rudolph comment on your shooting or driving skills though, or lack thereof really, which is ironically fun, as if you do remember I did mention that it's actually him who's the gunner. But whatever, his jabs at you are fun and decently varied. You naturally get to upgrade and modify your vehicle, which provides that sense of progression that many lackluster games lack. And Bandits is definitely not one of these. The primary and secondary weapons are plenty varied and you can mix and match them prior to each mission. While the gameplay is all there, I'm sure that we can agree on that, it's also clear from what you're watching that the graphics are excellent too, and the physics engine, at least for the time, was really top of the line, with cars sliding on the sand, colliding with each other, jumping off the hills and tumbling after failed landings, overall feeling like real scrap-made vehicles cutting through harsh endless desert stretches at high speed. Sound design and especially over 150 minutes of original music are top-notch too, though due to the character of this video, you're not really gonna be able to hear them well, so you have to take my word for it. Bandits is a hidden gem of a game and one worth experiencing even today. You're Eike Kusch, a young German man, and you've been murdered in a small quiet town of Lebensbaum, which name roughly means either Tree of Life or my favorite food cream. You know, Leben, so love, and Baum sounds suspiciously like Baum, and then there's that single S in there too, which just gotta stand for food, right? I mean, if not for anything else, then at least to fit my narration. So yeah, pick whichever translation you consider to be correct. Anyway, you're dead, and it sucks. I mean, out of all things you could be, a millionaire, father of the year runner-up for small towns and cities in the Oklahoma region, a celebrity chef, a dancing competition winner, or even flat surfaces conservator, you became one no one wants to be. Dead. Well, such is life, or death I suppose, so let's jump to our next game. I seem to have missed the most important detail here, because it appears that your death was not the end, so to speak, and we can't skip Shadow of Destiny just yet, because as you open your eyes, you realize that you're still there, and a being known as Homunculus tells you that while you've been stabbed, it's willing to give you a chance to prevent it. Yep, like literally turn back time. It offers you a time-traveling device and a task of saving your own life. So, your second chance becomes the race against time, as you will have to jump further and further back in time, altering the course of events to prevent your own murder. Shadow of Destiny, aka Shadow of Memories, is, as you can pretty much tell, a very unique time heist of an adventure game. Only you're not committing a theft of an expensive object or any riches, but stealing time, jumping between different periods of it to find that original first butterfly effect moment that started the chain of events that resulted with your killing. And let me tell you, it was not years or decades ago. It was centuries. The game is split into chapters, and while it features no action or instant death elements, all of the chapters are timed, and if you fail to complete the objectives within them in allotted time, they need to be restarted. I think that the best thing about Shadow of Destiny is its time-traveling mechanics, which allow you to change the future, which in turn means that the gameplay is very non-linear and offers a branching storyline leading to one of 6 unique endings on the first playthrough, and an option to unlock another 2 on the consecutive ones. Shadow of Destiny is unlike most other adventure games you've played, so if you're a fan of the genre, you should definitely not skip it. Cultures 2: The Gates of Asgard is a city-building real-time strategy mixture and a game that I've sadly not played myself. At least I don't recall doing so it's highly probable that I never did. So take everything that I will say about it with a grain of salt, a speck of dust, or a boson particle or whatever, and yeah, that's a really bad physics joke. And all that I will tell you about it is what I learned online. Anyway, Cultures 2 is in a lot of ways a bit like more well-known Settlers, as you manage a settlement and have to expand upon it, adding many different structures to it, which in turn offer utilities, features and services to your people. People who are all individuals with their own characters, careers and skills that improve upon training. It's kinda important to keep people trained and happy, as many of the buildings are soft-locked behind skill gates. So they may require your people, well, a few of them at least, to reach certain skill level at particular trades, like milling, mining, agriculture or whatever, to be able to erect more advanced structures. And since there's tons upon tons of these trades, and they also unlock each other upon reaching particular proficiency levels, the entire progression mechanics of Cultures 2 feels very unique. As I mentioned before, each and every person in your settlement is its own one-of-a-kind being, and following their own path in life. So they eat, sleep, talk to each other, form couples, marry, have kids, have careers, and overall live out their best digital pixel-made lives. You can naturally help them by assigning them to particular jobs to learn particular skills, by giving them tools, homes and clothes, by stocking up their homes with furniture and other useful items, making sure that they're content and growing. In general, you'll be responsible for anything and everything to keep your community growing, for construction, harvesting, production, and even making sure that the couples are actually actively trying to have children, among others. Cultures 2 is both a dream for micromanagement fun and a nightmare for someone who's all about the big picture. Because for all of it, for this entire machinery of a game to work, you will have to get deep and personal and manage it all by hand, oiling each and every gear by yourself for it not to fall apart. It's not a game loved for everyone, but those that do enjoy that kind of attention to detail will definitely love it. Military and combat is a bit simplified in Cultures 2, but it's understandable given that it's a side mechanic, and one to provide variety and a palette cleaner, so to speak, from all the micromanagement. And as such, even if rather basic, it works pretty well. It's worth pointing out that unlike in Settlers, finding an alien to your settlement does not automatically mean that you'll be in the war with it, and you can actually coexist peacefully and even trade with them, which is a nice touch. And so are the treasure chests and quests that you'll uncover on the map, and that will make the game feel more interesting and unpredictable. The game story follows a group of traveling Vikings sailing around the seas and building settlements all around the world, from Normandy to Baghdad. I remember when the first incoming was used as a benchmark of GPUs, and it was a long time ago. It was a decent action shooter in its own right, but its claim to fame was definitely how it was utilized by professionals. Incoming Forces is a sequel to that game, set 20 years after the original. After defeating the original alien invaders and living in peace and quiet for a while, humanity leaders begin to worry about possible alien retaliation strike and another war that we might not win. And since the pace at which aliens invent, rebuild and rearm themselves is something we just cannot guess, it is agreed that preemptive action is necessary and that we should strike them in the heart of their own homeland. So a gigantic armada of ships is built, armed with the latest and greatest pew-pewers and kaboom boomers, and sent off into space to seek any and all hostile planets and civilizations and eradicate them. After a short while of scouting of the unknown, we've eventually found the planet of the original invaders and begun a little campaign of genocide of our own. And that's how Incoming Forces begin. The only real mode of play other than the slightly botched multiplayer is a linear campaign, which offers 16 unique missions, each with its own set of few different objectives. There are quite a few of these overall in the game, and they can range from defeating of a particular group of enemies, through escort missions, all the way to defense of strategically important locations among others. You naturally get to control a multitude of different vehicles like tanks, bombers, turrets and fighters, and even arm them with a variety of weapons, add weapons between the action-packed mission sections. While Incoming Forces' story is interesting, it definitely takes a backseat, and it's the gameplay that's all about killing that is the king here. And what's more, all of it is for points, so ultimately it's just a score attack kind of a game. A great looking and playing one, but one nonetheless. Patrician III is a lie. Just like the Earth going around the Sun and not being a flat disk is a lie. Moon landing? Also a lie. You can't land the craft on a block of cheese, it's too fragile and it would melt from the heat, even kids know that. Or Tupac Shakur and Biggie's killing was a lie. They are hiding on the other side of the disk that we live on, as there's parallel to ours world out there. Pac is an aspiring realtor with a heart of gold and troubled past, and Biggie runs a pastry shop specializing in big events catering. They're both quite well actually. But all of that is not as big of a lie as Patrician III, because Patrician III, and hold on to your chairs as it will blow your mind, is actually an expansion pack to Patrician II, released along with a base game outside of Germany, its country of origin. and despite it being a fantastic business simulation in its own right, I think that the international release method of advertising it as a completely different game, a third installment in the series no less and not just an add-on, was a shitty move and one leaving a permanent brown stain on the publisher's trousers. Anyway, you're a member of so-called Hanseatic League, a commercial trading and defensive organization founded to protect members' trading interests in Central and Northern Europe from the late 12th to 15th century. You're a prospering young trader, hoping for amassing riches and creating his own trade empire to eventually become the titular patrician. And who patrician is other than the richest of the rich? I do not know. I'm not even sure that the person existed in real history. Because yeah, Hanseatic League actually did exist. You start with a small ship, hopefully buying low and selling high, increasing your wealth, investing in ports, ships, fleets, and even eventually involving yourself in politics. If you're a fan of games that let you lead your own company, Patrician III is a blast and you should definitely try it out. But if you're someone who's offended by terrible business practices publishers involved themselves in with the game, then you should also give it a chance. It's been years, no one cares anymore how it came to be, and neither do I really. I only complained about it for the sake of posterity so that we would not repeat the same mistakes twice. I'm not the best person to talk about RTSs as there were only a few that I genuinely enjoyed. It's not the genre, it's me, I'm just not cut out to play these. I was never very good at them, and I don't think that it will ever change. So whenever I have to cover one, and especially one with which I've only superficial experience, I feel a tad uneasy. Keep all of that in mind. Men RTS has the most obvious title I've heard, but also one that fits what it is perfectly. It's a real-time strategy in which you control an army of green toy soldiers against the opposing tan-colored one across a variety of battlefields in a 15 missions long campaign. The fact that all the units are toys changes nothing, as the traditional for the genre trifecta of resource gathering, structures and units building and combat are present in Men RTS and realized in a stylized in the game's toy theme perfectly. So, since most of the game takes place in and around the house, you collect plastic bits from random objects such as frisbees, dog balls and abandoned toys, and electricity from batteries, toasters and walkie-talkies to name a few, and these are your resources for units and buildings. Each type of unit looks and behaves differently, and they all have their own weak and strong sides and best use case scenarios too. Learning when to spend more on a costly unit and when to invest in numerous weaker ones may be the key to success, and since both sides have access to identical soldiers and buildings, it's just a sound strategy and knowledge of your troops that can give you any kind of an advantage in Men RTS. Well, power-ups can change the tide of the battle too, but since they have to be found, I consider them more as bonuses rather than something you can count on. The story behind this strategy is not great, but it's also not important, as it's the tactical depth that's what's most fun about Men RTS. But for the sake of giving you a complete overview of the game, I'll summarize it quickly anyway. Evil Green Army Colonel Blintz has painted himself and his supporting troops tan, took control of a suburban house, and now leads it with an iron fist. Well, with a plastic one really, but made out of that hard and not soft plastic, so you know, the one that those darn Lego bricks you step on at night are made out of. Now you, working for the Greens, have to free the house and bring back peace to the yard. What a fantastic year 2002 was. Would you believe that I still had like 40-50ish games that I considered for it? Well, they are not as big, unless I forgot some giants, which, knowing me, is plausible. And I'm keeping all the leftovers for my other series. Either way, how did you enjoy this episode and an entire year? Let me know in the comments below. And if you'd be so kind and like, sub and hit that bell down there in the right too, it would mean the world to me. So, thank you.